Welcome to Mac Stories Unwind, the show that's all about the picks. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Viticci. Hi, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
Doing really well. It's Friday, and I'm thinking about, all the media I'm going to try to consume this weekend. I'm in the middle of moving to a new place,
okay.
So I'm not so sure I'm going to get a lot of that in, although I have been listening to a lot of podcasts and a lot of music, which we'll get to in a minute. But one of the things that I've been thinking about as we move into this new house is what our media setup is going to be like. And is it going to change at all? And one of the things I was curious about to hear about from you, especially since you moved into a new place a little bit ahead of me, is whether the new Apple TV 4K has caught your eye at all. I mean, is that something that you're interested in? Because I think you already have like the last generation Apple TV 4K, right?
Yeah, I have is it the original Apple TV 4K? Yeah, I think it's I have like 2 or 3 of them like that I bought like a couple of years ago. I think it's the original Apple TV 4K, the one that they did with Dolby Atmos and Dolby Vision. Yeah, that one.
I had this conversation with Alex, and I think maybe this is the 3rd generation Apple TV 4K, the one that just came out.
The 3rd?
I think. Huh. I might be wrong.
Oh, yeah, because they did another one when they relaunched the Siri remote. But I remember at the time I didn't buy. So that was the 2nd generation Apple TV 4K, which I did not buy because it had nothing of interest for me. I just got like 3 Siri remotes at the time, I remember.
Right. All right. So, but does this new one, does it attract you at all?
Remind me what the new one has.
Well,
because it completely flew past me when they announced it. I think it's smaller.
It's smaller.
And there's the version without the Ethernet port.
Right. It's smaller and lighter. You have more storage available if you get the higher end model. That's kind of, well, I guess it's got HDR10 plus support, which I believe is a thing that is very specific to Samsung TVs and maybe Vizio TVs. I was looking at this the other day.
Okay, and I have neither of those. I have LG TVs everywhere.
Same. So for me, I looked at it. I was like, well, I guess it's also got, of course, the new A15 chip, which should make it run a little faster.
It's faster when you scroll your Up Next queue.
Yeah, which is necessary now. Oh, man.
Right. Let's talk about that briefly. I mean, Unwind is a show, we're not going to cover these on App Stories, but this is a show about media picks, and we often talk about Apple TV content, so why not? So John is referring to a change that was applied, it seems, server-side a few days ago.
Right.
For those running the beta versions of iOS, HyperOS, and tvOS 16.2.
Yeah.
I haven't checked the Ventura beta. I have to assume it's the same deal. But essentially, in the Watch Now tab, so the home section of the TV app, the App Next tray, the horizontal tray of stuff that you have in your App Next queue, like a movie that you saved or the next episode of a TV series that you've been watching, that has been moved down. It's been moved down to make room for a big, chunky, featured section that are effectively like these giant thumbnails, like movie posters for Apple TV Plus content. So effectively, Apple is showing you featured items that are very big, causing you to move down and to make the App Next queue a little harder to use.
Yeah, it's below the fold,
thoughts?
as they say, because it's below the fold, as they say, because it's not visible when you open up the app. And I can confirm that the situation is the same on the Mac, because I just opened it up as you were talking, and it's got a featured row. The row isn't quite as chunky as it is elsewhere, but it's still Up Next is below the fold. I don't like it. I mean, I do like to have a featured section, just not at the very top, because it does serve a purpose. It serves the purpose of finding new things to watch. But the reality is, at any one time, if I'm watching a couple of different shows, I want to know what the next episode is, especially when you're watching things that are coming out periodically and not dropped all at once. You want to know when the new episode is available. And Up Next is perfect for that. I mean, this is a little different than a streaming services app where, because the TV app is meant to pull in content from other providers and bring it all into one place. And one of the chief features of that and benefits of it is the ability to put all that content into one category that shows you what's new, whether it happens to be on TV Plus or Amazon Prime or something else.
Right. Yeah. So I gotta say, like, when I first saw it, there was, and I'm gonna try and be balanced about this. I haven't spent a lot of time lately catching up on new Apple TV Plus content and new releases, right? So the moment I saw everybody was tweeting about this, so of course, when everybody's tweeting about something, you also are almost contractually obligated to have an opinion yourself.
Of course, especially on Twitter.
Right. Everybody's got to have an opinion until Twitter lasts, of course.
Yes.
Got to make sure you get those opinions in until you have time. So I opened the TV app, and I got to tell you, like, for the first 20 seconds, there was some value for me to be extracted from that featured section.
Right.
Like, I scrolled for like 20 seconds. I was like, okay, yeah, I see. There's this new Acapulco, as it seems like new episodes out. There's this movie that seems interesting. Like, as a recap for someone who hasn't been on Apple TV Plus in a while, like, that was useful. And then after a minute, I was like, okay, now I get it. I have seen this featured content. Give me back my App Next queue as the topmost section. So I almost wonder if maybe this featured area could be shown, I don't know, dynamically to people, like contextually, like, because as someone who hasn't been in there in a while, it was useful to as a quick recap, like, hey, here's a bunch of new things that maybe you're not familiar with. But once that was done, once I had that knowledge, I was like, okay, I get it. I see this stuff now. I almost wonder maybe that section should go away. I don't know, but I feel like there is something about that, but not to show it all the time, because then it just becomes a waste of space.
Right. Or maybe you promote the Up Next to the top row if there actually is something new. Like, you might be someone who doesn't really use Up Next very often. And so you may be only tracking a couple of shows, and there aren't new episodes that often. So it makes sense to have the featured on top most of the time, except for when something brand new is there. So maybe they could kind of move the location. Now, I suppose that has its own issues in terms of design and familiarity and coming back and what the user experience is like if things are moving around day to day. But I do get what you're saying. I mean, that featured section isn't going to change. Like tonight you might go back and look at your Apple TV again and see that, it's really pretty much the same as it was yesterday afternoon. You know what I mean? And that's not a great experience either. So I think some sort of dynamic filtering would be really nice.
But anyway, the Apple TV 4K. So it's smaller. I think it's shorter and it's less deep and shorter. Like the height of it is shorter than the existing one.
Although it wasn't exactly big to begin with. So I don't know how much that really matters. At least it doesn't to me that much.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it matters, but hey, it's smaller.
As the guy who has a PS5 hidden behind his TV, the Apple TV is the least of my problems.
Right, exactly. Like, and one of my problems now, for example, is we are rethinking we're waiting for the living room furniture to arrive, but I've already made plans for the PS5 is gonna be the only. It's gonna be the console that'll be visible. We left like an open spot in this huge cabinet that we got. We left an open spot for the PS5 to sit there horizontally, so like laying flat instead of sitting upright as I have it right now. But the gaming PC is gonna be hidden behind the TV. And we made plans for cable management. Like, we designed a very nice thing that's going to hide all the cables. But my concern right now is going to be, okay, where am I going to put the VR2 stuff, the PS VR2 when it launches in February? where am I gonna put it? Because you got a visor, you got the two controllers. I think you will still need a cable.
Yeah, you do.
For the headset.
Yep.
So that I'm thinking about. The Apple TV, I mean, it's no concern. It's a small puck that you can hide whatever, So it's not a huge concern, physically speaking.
It really, the accessories and TVs really have become a problem, because if you have a game console and you've got a TV and you've got an Apple TV, you've got a couple of remotes, you've got a game controller, maybe you have two game controllers, and then, you get something like PSVR, like you're looking at, all of a sudden you have all this stuff. Maybe you have a Switch connected to your TV, and so you've got Joy-Con and maybe a Pro controller. Mm-hmm. I find managing all that stuff to be a bit of a pain. I agree. I mean, you need to have kind of a place that's nearby to tuck it away where it's not visible all the time, because it becomes clutter very quickly.
Exactly. So anyway, I don't think I need the new Apple TV 4K. I mean, I don't play games on my Apple TV. I am no longer an Apple Arcade subscriber. I haven't been in like 5 months, 6 months. All I do is, instead of using the built-in app on my LG TV, I use the Apple TV because I prefer the interface, because I prefer that I can control it from the phone.
Yeah.
Because I like that it serves as a HomeKit hub, and I prefer the performance when it comes to using the TV app or Netflix or YouTube. That's it. Like I don't do anything else with it. It's a gateway to entertainment services. I just prefer the Apple UI and the integration with iOS. That's why I use the Apple TV.
All right. Well, let me change the question just slightly on you and say, your Apple TV 4K that you have now breaks.
Oh my God, you're jinxing this for me.
Which of the new ones would you get? Would you get the one with Ethernet or not, basically, is I think what it comes down to personally.
Yeah, I'll get the Ethernet one.
Yeah,
at least for the living room. Because I know in the living room, that's where like the TV area is where whenever they activate fiber for us, that's where the modem and the router will be. So there I'll use Ethernet because it's going to be, it's right there. I might as well use Ethernet. But in the living room, in the bedroom, no. I'm gonna. If the one in the bedroom also breaks for whatever reason, because John said so, there I will get the Wi-Fi version.
Well, it sounds like you have like 2 or 3 of these, and I think you've only got two TVs, so you've got it sounds like you have a spare one somewhere.
Yeah, I have another at the beach house.
Oh,
but
okay.
If that one also breaks, I'll get the Wi-Fi. I get the Wi-Fi version there too.
All right.
Well, what about you? Are you getting any of these new models?
No, I don't think so. At least not right away. I have as you know, I have a relatively new LG C2 TV, and that goes in our living room. I might get a smaller TV for in my office when I set it up at my new house. I don't know if I have space for it though. So I'm kind of waiting to see. If I do that, then I probably would get an Apple TV 4K to connect to it and have it down there for games and other stuff.
All right. Well, I'll let you know if any of my Apple TVs break.
All right. All right. And if they do, just let me know, because I'll feel responsible and have to send you one.
Yes. Perfect. I love it. All right, so what do you want to talk about? We just spent well, it's easy to just spend 15 minutes talking about the Apple TV. So there you go.
It is. Well, let's do a couple of quick picks still, because first of all, I want to talk about Midnights by Taylor Swift, because I think this is an album that you and I have both listened to quite a bit since it came out. I think it's been 2 weeks now that it's been out, and I've been listening to the 3 a.m. version, which is the one that has an extra half dozen or so songs with
I've been listening to the regular version.
This seems like a very John versus Federico thing. You are what I would call an album purist.
Yes, that's exactly where I was going with it. Yes.
Where that is the album that was intended to be the album, and you want to listen to what was intended to be what was released as the main album, and not have all this extra stuff with it. I, on the other hand, love all the extras and B-sides and singles and all that remixes, everything. So I listen to the 3 a.m. version. And there are some good songs on there. So I would recommend that you listen to the extras at some point, even if you just do it as a separate thing at some point.
That thing about the extras is precisely also why, like, it's that argument of people. Sometimes you get readers asking you, "Hey, why don't you share your drafts of your articles with people who pay?" And let me tell you, you don't want to see them. You may think it's cool to take a look behind the scenes, but look, I'm not James Cameron. It's not cool to take a look behind the scenes of my articles. Like, I can understand why for movies or TV shows, like, it's pretty neat, and you have a whole operation going. Like, in that case, it's neat. In this case, it's not neat. It's just a guy in his sweatpants messing around with Markdown. Like, it's not glamorous at all.
No, it's not at all.
Yeah.
No.
But in the case of Taylor Swift, I understand why you may like the extras. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and these are actually fully formed songs. I mean, maybe they're a little more unpolished than some of what was on the main album, but there's still some good ones here that I think are worth listening to. And but let's talk about the main album. And this, to me, this is a return to Reputation and Lover in a lot of ways.
Yes, especially Lover, I would say.
I think so. Although there are a couple of tracks on here that remind me of Reputation, but yes, I think it's very much a pre-pandemic Taylor Swift album, and I like it, but I also kind of really liked the last two albums, the quieter, more folksy kind of albums, the pandemic Taylor Swift.
Oh, I love them. Yes.
Those are, I think, to me, that's my favorite version of Taylor Swift, I suppose. I mean, I still really like a lot of her catalog, and I do like this album a lot, but I guess I was maybe a little surprised that it's a return to these Lover and Reputation, I suppose, in part maybe because she's going on tour. And these are very much songs that I think will work well in stadiums, and maybe that isn't as much the case with the last couple of albums. So I think maybe that might be part of it. But in any event, I'll tell you, here are my favorite tracks. I like Anti-Hero,
of course, everybody loves it.
Anti-Hero is kind of the first hit single off of this.
Yeah.
And it's also worth noting that, none of these tracks were released early, which is very common these days. For, months in advance, you'll get releases of songs before you get the full album. And this album came out all at once and captured the first 10 spots in the Billboard Hot 100, which is the first time that has ever happened in history. I think Drake came very close a few years ago, but all 10 slots were Taylor Swift songs. Anti-Hero, there was some controversy about the music video here, where there's like, it's like this music video where it's her, and it's like a double of her. It's like the evil version to some degree.
Wait, what's the controversy?
The controversy is when she steps on the scale, and it said fat on the scale, and they edited it out because it was criticized.
Really?
As body shaming, and
I completely missed all of this. Okay,
that's been in the news over the last week or so. But in any event, still a very good video, I think. Other than the controversy, and a very good song. Mastermind.
Yes. I love Mastermind because I find the whole premise of the song, like, lyrically speaking, very clever.
I do.
Basically, it's this story of how she was planning all along to meet and be together with her partner.
Right.
And how she was scheming and plotting every single detail behind the scenes. Like, you may have thought that our first encounter was accidental, but actually it wasn't. What if I told you I'm a mastermind, that I've been scheming all these things behind the scenes? And there's a bridge at the end of the song where it's almost as if she breaks the fourth wall, and almost like she talks to the listener, and she confesses, like, I've actually been this way since I was little, because all that I ever wanted was for people to like me, and therefore that's why I've been scheming and plotting all these things ever since. And then you may think, oh, okay, so that's a bit of a, it's very autobiographical. That's cool. But then the tables turn again in the song, and in the last chorus, the partner right? The Taylor says, "I see a smirk. You know this. You know about this all along. You knew that I'm a mastermind." So it's this very cool dynamic in which first she appears as the mastermind, then as the song goes, she literally says, "This is the first time that I felt the need to confess." But then at the very end, we also realize, oh, the partner knew they were being quote unquote played, and they fell for it regardless. It's a very nice. She knows how to tell a story, is what I'm saying.
She really does, and it's sung in this kind of sinister way, which I really kind of appreciate and like a lot. "Snow on the Beach" is another great track. That's with Lana Del Rey too.
Where is Lana Del Rey though?
Very hard to hear Lana Del Rey, and it's very much in the background of the vocals. Yeah, and some of the choruses, but does have a little bit of a Lana Del Rey vibe to the song too, as well, as I think. And then I guess the other two I'd mention are "Karma" and "Bejeweled." I like both of those songs a lot too.
Me too.
This is a Jack Antonoff collaboration, and you can tell. I mean, there's a lot of synths, very poppy. Some of the extra songs in the 3 a.m. version are, what's the guy's name?
From the National, Aaron Dessner.
Yes, Aaron Dessner. They are collaborations with him, and that's, to me, that's very interesting. And I think overall, I like that collaboration better. Although,
me too. I've listened to that one and I like that song a lot too. It's big. Like I have enjoyed this collaboration between Taylor Swift and Aaron Dessner.
Yes.
They collaborated on Folklore, I think,
and Evermore too, I think,
and Evermore too. And Aaron was, of course, part of the documentary that they put out on Disney Plus for the making of Folklore. That song is it's a really good extra track. Yes.
Yeah. So that is Midnights. I think I don't know who's not listening to this, because when I look in Apple Music, I see all the profile pictures of everybody who I follow in Apple Music, and they're all listening to it. So, and obviously it's at the top of the charts, but if you haven't checked it out, definitely worth listening to.
Yeah. Well, I thought I was gonna mention a game, but looks like we ran out of time, so I'm gonna save a couple of game picks for next week.
Oh, good.
One of them, hopefully, is gonna be God of War, which is coming out next week. So I'll make sure to be playing that. But there's also something else that I've been playing on the Switch. So next week, stay tuned for a game discussion, I guess.
All right, sounds good. Well, I will talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.